Welcome to the Movement PT Coffee Cast, where we sit down and talk about physical therapy, health, and whatever else comes to mind during our coffee-infused conversations. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Movement PT Coffee Cast. My name's Dalton, and with me, as always, is my beautifully bearded friend, William. William, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. How about you?
I'm great, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that we finally got on. It's been about half an hour now because my computer. Let me say this. All right, I literally think Microsoft is messing with me, man. I've been trying not to update because I don't want to do these updates, and all of a sudden my internet shuts off. But my internet on my iPad and on my phone still works, so I know it's not my actual internet. So Microsoft is out there shutting my internet off. Then it makes me update. It's conspiracy.
Dalton, it's going to be okay.
I'm telling you, I'm sick of it. I'm going to Mack. That's it. I'm done. No, but I'm pumped. I'm pumped, and I'm highly caffeinated now. I'm going on like my fourth cup of coffee, so I'm excited.
That makes it all a little bit easier.
Yeah. So let's hop into our episode today. We got a fun-filled, lots of guests today. This is the most we've ever had like on one podcast at one time. So I want to welcome the Therabaes. We have Cam, Bree, and Mack. They are all physiotherapy students at McMaster University in Canada. And we are excited to have them on the show. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Ooh, that was good. That was coordinated.
We didn't even rehearse. We're actually pretty well the same person, so it might not be the most people we've ever had on.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's good. Well, why don't we start it off? Why don't you guys just kind of briefly intro who you are, say your name, and maybe like a fun fact about yourself or something.
All right. So my name is Bree, as Dalton introduced me. I'm actually from Nova Scotia, so I took the journey out here last August to start my master's in physiotherapy at McMaster, and things have been going really great. And that's where I met these two lovely ladies here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what's your fun fact?
Ooh. That was my fun fact. I'm from Nova Scotia.
Okay. Okay, fine. We'll take it. My name's Mack. I go to Mack, and I'm from Peterborough, Ontario. And my fun fact is that Bree and I were born in the same hospital, but 2 years apart.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah.
I found that out like not too long ago either.
Yeah. I was born in Halifax, and then my family moved to Ontario like at age 1 or something. Mm-hmm. And then,
it was meant to be.
It was.
Yeah. So my name's Pam. I'm from Ottawa. My fun fact about myself is that I grew up in a town called Carp, and it was named after the fish, but there's actually no fish in our river that are carps.
Yeah, because they're all in Peterborough.
Yo, you guys got some good fun facts. Like, I feel like I couldn't come up with the fun fact.
Yeah, no, that was challenging. Yeah.
That's a great way to start it off. What I want to get into right off the bat, before we start talking about physio school, I want to talk about Therabaes. So, 1, tell me how you came up with the amazing name. 2, give our listeners a little bit of insight to what you guys are trying to do on the social platforms with your Instagram.
Okay. Well, how did we come up with it? We were all in Thunder Bay for placement, and we were, I'm going to be honest, there's not that much to do up there. So we had a lot of free time in between our placement and like stuff to do on weekends. And we were like, well, why not use our time to do something fun and make some connections? So Therabaes was born.
Yeah, I think it kind of came from like we had our group chat because it was the 3 of us, and we called ourselves the Therabaes. Mm-hmm. And then like maybe it evolved from there.
I think, I was scrolling back in the chat and I was like, how did this come about? And I said like I thought Therabands, like, like Therabands, and I think it evolved from Therabands. So
I remember it being one of that was one of the first names we threw out there,
And
and we're like, okay, we can probably do better than that. And then we actually ended up circling back to the name, and we were like, it's actually pretty good. It seems suiting to us, and I'm glad that we stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we actually, all three of us had our own separate physio accounts that we started because we were kind of inspired by a little bit of the social media stuff that we heard just through some of our classes. And then we actually had a project where Cam and I talked to you guys, and it's kind of funny to think that we came up with it because we had to write a paper on it, but it was kind of cool to do research on and kind of hear some other people's perspectives that were out working physiotherapists or new grads. And so when we were up in Thunder Bay, I think that's just we were talking about it one day, and we're like, well, why don't we do something like that? And so it's a lot more fun collabing with three people. So yeah,
for sure.
As you two would know.
Yeah. I mean, more minds equals better content. That's what I'm
saying. It was definitely easier for us though when we started having each other and kind of bouncing ideas and stuff like that. That I feel that was a big kind of an easier way to kind of start, especially when you're a student.
Yeah. See, that's a big thing too. We started when we were in Thunder Bay, and we were on placement, so we definitely had a lot more time than we have when we're in our academic semesters. But now that we actually are full blown back into school, I am so grateful that I have there's three of us to keep things on track, because it's a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Therabaes is probably the best name out there, right?
I think so. I'm not just saying that. I think it's great.
If we have nothing else, we have a good name. Purple color.
No, I think and the purple color. But I think what you guys are doing is great. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about what's the goal behind what you guys are doing? What's the vision? Do you have that right now, or are you kind of cultivating that?
I think we've got kind of a few different pathways going, I think, because what we learned from doing research for our papers is we kind of learned that there's not only ways for us to disseminate information to the public, but there's ways for us to actually gain information from PTs that are out there, as well as other healthcare professionals. So it kind of works both ways in that sense, where we would love to kind of tell people and prospective students about not only Mack PT, but PT in general. And then we use it often to find posts, find different treatments, and find new evidence that people are coming up with, and kind of hoping to apply that to our own practice someday. So I think it kind of works both ways.
That. Yeah.
A lot of the connections too, just connecting with other physios, because as a student you live in a little bit of a bubble, so it's been a chance to get outside of that bubble and kind of reach out to people who might not even be in our own community. So it's been really cool. I'm not sure we're if that's the vision, but maybe that's the overarching goal.
I feel it'll change because yes, we would love to get our name out there, but at this point we don't have it's not we're trying to sell something to someone. So at this point in our life right now, it's just kind of to inform people about us, and kind of give an all-female presence as well, coming from 3 girls and 3 students. And so I think it'll start to evolve, but at this point
it's a passion right now too. It's brought us together, and it's so fun, and I love meeting people, and I love learning things, just going through our feed every single day and coming up with ideas, and it's so fun kind of showing what we're doing in class to the rest of the world. And I hope there's at least one person out there that loves seeing our silly posts every day and seeing it's a passion too.
Yeah, I think you guys hit on a couple really key things. One, Mac, what you said about being able to put information out there for the public and other people to consume, to learn more about the profession, but also using it as a means to educate yourselves. I think that's a big thing that me and Will realized as we started to put content out, was we're learning more than I feel we're even giving it sometimes. And I think that's what's really cool about it. And then touching on the idea that you guys think that your vision and what's going on is going to change. And I totally agree with that. And I think it's okay for that to happen. It's almost kind of like you guys documenting your journey. And once you start to do more things and you start to put yourself out there and connect, like you're saying, that vision will start to come together. And then once you really know it and like you feel it, then everything will start to just funnel towards that vision. So I think it's really cool that you guys are going through that right now, because that's something that me and Will went through and are still kind of going through like currently.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning process as we're still trying to figure out school. So
yeah,
like we have a couple other things on the go too.
Yeah,
but no, yeah.
But I think that's like a key component of what makes a good physio. You know, is someone who's adaptable. And then the other thing is like you kind of touched on, is a passion. And with your brand and what you guys are, is you can kind of start to steer that towards what you like, you know, and like where your interest lies. And you never know what that can kind of turn into in the future.
Mm-hmm. I'm really glad that, like, not that this was even planned, but I'm glad that we were just so open-minded about anything. Like, we weren't set in our ways when we started it. Like, we just loved, we see interesting stuff and we go after it. And it kind of just goes into like what Mack was saying, is that we don't have really a set plan and it changes all the time. But I like it because I love learning about everything and seeing every part of it. So, yeah.
Cool. I'm curious to hear like from you guys, you know, starting with the social media in school, and like maybe if you were speaking to other people who are or like other students or other people, like what is one positive takeaway, I guess, that you could say you've gained from being on social? And then maybe one, not necessarily negative, but maybe something that is you think can be challenging, or maybe a potential problem with us putting content on social platforms.
Well, can we start with the negative one?
Yeah, we always start with the negative.
Get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way. Go for it.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. You go.
I feel like a big negative thing is that you can post like anything, and someone they don't always take it with a grain of salt. Like, you could post like, here's how you do a plank, and they take that at face value, but it's not like you have a physio who's going to instruct you on doing it, or like, here's how you floss, but they don't have like the background to something.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't provide therapy through an Instagram. You can just provide ideas. So it's always like, do people take that with a grain of salt, or do they take it at face value? Kind of the balance.
Yeah.
Sure.
And not only that, is that the internet provides this platform, like you said, to put anything out there, that there can be stuff on there that perhaps isn't evidence-based.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, when I say perhaps, I mean, there is stuff out there that is not evidence-based and that is perhaps doesn't have the perfect ground that it's standing on. And so that can be a negative thing as well, which is kind of what we want to counteract, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's one thing too, it's like you don't necessarily know who your viewers are just because, like, we do have an open account and we do have tons of followers. And even if we were to direct our stuff towards like physiotherapists, it doesn't mean that, you don't know who's actually watching and who's actually taking that information and what they're doing with it.
I think from another side of things too is that, like, as students, and we're always like scrolling through feeds, sometimes it's conflicting evidence. Like, you'll get one thing saying like, oh, this is great, like do this, and then others like, no, never do this. Like, oh my God, like joint mobs or stuff like that. Like, sometimes you just get like such like manual therapy. I don't know. There's so much conflicting evidence. It's like, what do you pick one?
Yeah, I want to touch on that a little bit, maybe in the next like question, but I want to come back to like the negative thoughts on this. Is something me and Will have talked about a lot lately too, is like what we're putting out on Instagram, because I think context plays a huge factor into it. And like you're saying, putting out exercises, like one thing that we've steered away from, I think, is like saying, okay, if you have this quote unquote problem, here's exercises that you should do for this. We did that in the past, and I think we're trying to transition away from that, because like there's so many factors that can play into someone's recovery from said injury, right? So we're trying to maybe focus more on, like, a lot of our content lately has been just like more like general exercise or tips, or here's some exercises that you can try, not necessarily putting them to one specific, like, let's say pathology, and like putting out more content on like behavior change and maybe like simple ways to understand pain science, like different things like that are more like general information, I guess, that people can take in. Will, like, Is that kind of, what I'm trying to hit on a little bit?
Yeah. And I think like the fact that you are all thinking about that is really what you need to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, regardless of whether you put your stamp on the social media, there's going to be people that are putting out things that are wrong and potentially harmful. And they may be doing that to make money, because that's what kind of brings people into the door for what they're doing. So I think it's a positive influence to have a more critical mindset and to be thinking through these things and comparing some of the conflicting views and reading into it on your own, and then making your own kind of models of like of how these things work and stuff. If you go into with that mindset and you consider how what you put out influences the public, and you're aware of that kind of responsibility, then you're going to get better and better. And the content you put out is going to be good. It's going to get more and more nuanced. It's going to include more and more context. Do you know what I mean? So having that mindset is a huge thing. It's a negative because people can obviously misuse that responsibility, but it's a positive coming from you guys where you're already aware of that and then willing to evolve and grow as things go.
I think that translates well into clinical practice as well, right? Like it brings into that idea of like maybe being a little bit more critical of the things you're saying to people, or why you're giving certain exercises to people, or why you're doing a certain joint mob, or why you're using a certain modality. So I think it just comes full circle. And is another reason why I think social media can be like a positive for students, right? Because it kind of gets you thinking in that mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys brought up the conflicting thing. This is something I wanted to talk about a little bit, and we can kind of transition into like school now, I think. So like when you talk about conflicting evidence and like I know me and Will experienced this a lot when we were in school. Like sometimes we were learning things in school and then we're doing our own learning through like social and blogs and podcasts. And like sometimes the evidence is they're just conflicting each other, right? Like you're learning this in school, you're learning this outside, and you're like, holy shit. Like what's going on? So I want to know maybe from your perspective how that's been, how you've tried to maybe deal with that, or has that not been a problem for you guys?
I feel like our program does a good job of giving us like all the base info in everything. So I understand why like we need to learn about things like ultrasound and things like muscle stim and whatever that other one was that we touched upon.
Anything that we would be exposed to on clinical placement.
So I get the basis of why they're exposing us to it, but then also it's hard coming from the place of like having that bias towards exercise and then being like, oh, here's when you would use this, and like there's just not that much evidence to support say the use of a certain modality. So I find the modalities piece is a little bit challenging for me to wrap my head around. And then you see the evidence and it's like, I don't know, you're really weighing it.
Sure.
I agree with that. And I think there's also, I mean, we're the first cohort of the new curriculum as well. So I think that perhaps, I know that we get like a baseline, but we actually have been getting a lot of like very recent evidence as well for some of our lectures and stuff. So it's nice to see that that the way that they're teaching us things is also trying to stay as up to date, but there obviously is the conflicting evidence with any topic. So I think Cam described it really well as like modalities is probably the one thing where we're all like, we want to use as little modalities as possible, but they do need to teach us these things, because the reality is in clinics, when you're on placement as a student, you're going to most likely be asked to do these types of things. And so, that one's tough. Yeah.
And I think that becomes like, I mean, we went into this on an episode that we done with Cash about like the exam and all that stuff. But I think that's when what comes up is like the problem. And you guys can touch on this. I know you guys been on clinical placement, but like you say, we need to learn these things. We need to learn these things in school because they're going to come up on like our placement. But then my question is like, why are those things coming up on your placements when we know that maybe there's a different approach that we can take that can be potentially be better for people. So like, how have you guys like done like with placement in terms of like taking some of the information you're learning outside of school, the information that you're learning in school, and then trying to actually apply that in like a clinical setting to learn, because that's where you do a lot of your learning, right, on placement?
Like, I can start with this one because I had a bit of a unique experience. So we were all in Therabaes, we said, for our first one. And the preceptor that I was with, we never touched a modality the entire time that I was there. So I wasn't exposed to ultrasound. We just didn't. He was really, really big on exercise. And I think it set an amazing baseline for me because that's what I saw and that's what I have been expecting since. And like, I saw how much of an impact exercise can make on a patient's recovery. We looked at a lot of low back pain, and that was his big thing. It was just like, it was really interesting to see, because I had shadowed a physio who did like all ultrasound in a clinic at home, and I almost wasn't going to go into it because I wasn't really sure if that's what I wanted to see. I didn't see myself doing that. So my preceptor really kind of gave me a new perspective, and that was really good for me.
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
And then like the complete opposite spectrum, like my placement, I was exposed to it. So not necessarily a lot, but there was certain circumstances where I was asked to use a modality on a patient, but my preceptor was amazing as she would question me. So she said, this is what I would like to do with him today, but I want you to understand why I want you to do this with them. So she would give me the opportunity to go back and research. And I would say, well, I couldn't really find anything for like why you would be using ultrasound. And she would really take into consideration to what I had found. And we would possibly adjust the treatment plan based off of what I was finding. Mm-hmm. So I think it was super awesome to have somebody who was clearly a lot higher than me, like take into consideration the research that I was finding. I definitely have a little bit of a bias too. I like the exercise side of things more than the modalities. But it also comes down to your patient preference too. So I would have patients come in and say, I've had an awful experience with physiotherapy before. I went in and they put IFC, I always say that wrong.
It's all right.
And left me for 20 minutes and then came back and charged me $70. And it was like, I don't want to be here because of that. But on the other side of the spectrum, we'd have people come in and say, I want ultrasound and nothing else. And this is what I want. So it comes down to education. It also comes down to how you want to run your clinic. But again, patient preference is always first as well. So
on the hospital side of things, we didn't use them. I didn't touch one, which was sweet. I was in stroke rehab. However, I did see they do like neuromuscular stimulation. And so I think it depends on the context. Like we've been saying, it depends on the context in which you're using it. But for me, I'm also a little bit biased to just exercise, mainly because it's something that they're going to be able to do at home. And when they're done at physio, they're not going to go do ultrasound on themselves. Like this is like something that will really contribute to exercise adherence and like after like progress afterwards. So I see the benefits of both. But I really admire when preceptors like Breeds are taking into consideration new information and
I think we've said this before, but I feel like we lucked out with preceptors going up north. Like all three of us have nothing bad to say. Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to change with the next one, but
where are you guys heading for your next clinical placement?
I'm in Hamilton.
Okay.
Lifemark community.
Yeah, I'm at AIM Physio in Hamilton as well. So yeah, both community.
I'm in Port Colborne.
Cam's making a trek.
So I will be driving to Port Colborne every day. For those of you who don't know, that's about an hour and a half away.
Ooh.
Yeah. Wasn't my top choice, but we're going with it, and I'm doing inpatient rehab and a bit of outpatient. So it'll be very different than the last community. So send your podcast recommendations my way, please.
You can have some free time every day.
Well,
I'm excited. I wasn't sure how I felt about having another community again right in a row, but I'm excited to see like something completely different and see like if that like changes my mind or if it's completely different.
Yeah, I don't know if they do it the same at Western as they do here, but we are assigned what we're going to get. So like we know what all our placements are going to be, if they're going to be acute or rehab or community.
Interesting. Yeah, no, we were a little different than that.
It's different.
Same but different. Yeah.
But I like what you guys are doing with like your page in general, and your podcast is kind of like highlighting like what physio school is like and what your kind of day-to-day and like month-to-month sort of situation is. So I feel like we got to talk a little bit about like physio school in general.
Yeah.
Like, I guess like the first question is like, did physio school meet your expectations? Was it what you thought it was going to be when you applied, or is it different? Like, if so, then how?
I don't think I've ever had someone ask me this question. That's a good question.
That's why it's the PT Coffee Cast. I'm just kidding.
I don't want to scare you off, but it's a lot harder than I thought it would be.
This is what
You're coming at us after midterms, though. So
Yeah.
it's like we're still recovering a teeny bit. So you keep that in mind.
Yeah, we're fragile right now. But this is the biggest thing that they say. They always say, okay, by always I mean my mom. She says that. She says the hard part is getting in. And I'm like, now, like a month in, I was like, Mom, you're wrong. The hard part is now for the next 24 months. This is the hard part. That's the biggest misconception.
Yeah.
I agree.
Different.
I feel like a lot of students obviously work your butt off to get into physio school because it's not easy. And I don't know, I obviously didn't expect it to sit back and be like, woohoo, I'm in it. Like, it's just like smooth driving from here. But I don't know if I had expectations. Like, I didn't really know what to expect going in. I had a couple friends who were in PT school who I talked to, and they all said like, great time, like you'll love it, like keep working towards it, like hopefully you get accepted. But I don't think I really ever had the conversation with the people who I was talking to about like what it was actually like and like school wise. And I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I didn't think it's hard.
Yeah. But I mean,
in a good way though.
we're
Like,
getting so many hands-on skills, which is really cool. That's like an expectation that's definitely been met.
yeah,
I think McMaster as a whole is a little bit unique in their way, in their learning style. And like none of us had been here for undergrad, so we weren't used to the whole problem-based learning side of things. And I think that is like just an added challenge on top
a huge
of
adjusting
to physio.
But it's still like, for me, it was like one of the reasons I chose Mack was because it had that different element. Because otherwise, like, you're all going to end up with the same degree. You're all ending up with a Master of Science PT. So like for me, I was like, this seems unique and I kind of want to try it out. So I think the biggest learning curve was the problem-based learning, but I also see the benefits of it because we're not just regurgitating information that is presented to us. We actually have to go find it, which I think has really, for me, I mean, it's difficult. It's a lot of work, but it has really helped me kind of figure out which ones of those articles are like valuable, like which one, what evidence is top notch. Like, it really helps me figure out what kind of evidence is out there and what the best treatment is, type of thing. As well as I can now kind of present my information rather than just regurgitating it and then forgetting it. So
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, good for you guys. Honestly, like if I was in that problem-based learning, I would not be sitting here right now talking about physio. I'm telling you that much. Oh man.
It's not all rainbows sometimes. Like sometimes you really just wish someone would give you the answer, but
like those Western grads, they just feed you the information.
Yeah.
If you guys need anything, we got tons of slides for you. Let us know.
See, some days.
yeah.
Some days that would be.
Oh.
There might be some like students listening though. So I'm curious, like, could you describe the problem-based learning? Like, how does that actually work?
So instead of them, let's go with abdominal aortic aneurysm. Okay, you're learning about aneurysms, and you guys get normal school. You get a slideshow explaining everything. Like, here's how it presents. Here's like the cause. Blah blah blah. Instead, they say your patient is presenting with these symptoms, and then you go research what it could be, and then you come back and you're in this small group of about 5-6 people, and you all present like your ideas about what you think it could be, and like all this and symptoms. And so it's like you're synthesizing a ton of different sources and trying to come up with an idea. So it's like problem solving your way through. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good explanation.
Well, but we also create the problems. Like the questions aren't even given to us.
No, it's like a case study. We sit there and we pick it apart for about 3 weeks, just picking apart possibly anything that you might not understand. You go and you make that a learning objective and you go and you research it. Mm-hmm. And it's questions, but you're also making management plans once you feel like you do have a good grasp on it, and you're constantly questioning each other. And it does become frustrating when like everyone comes in with possibly different information, kind of going back to what I said about having conflicting evidence out there. It does happen a lot, and it happens between students and professors because the students are going out there and finding, you have 60 students researching, right? Everyone's going to come back with different information, like to some extent. So it does get hard sometimes, and they're not necessarily easy things to research sometimes either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been, I think the best way to say it, it's like case-based learning.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Are there certain things that are taught more lecture style?
Kind of.
Yeah. Anatomy.
Okay.
Yeah. I can throw that one out there.
Research anatomy.
Our clinical lab classes kind of are like it's a little didactic in the sense that they like have a little mini presentation before, and we have like readings to do before, and then the class itself is like a 3-hour class where they're teaching us skills, and then we have they teach, we practice, they teach, we practice, they teach, we practice. So that's didactic in a sense.
Yeah.
Which is good, because I think that's what, like, I would not want to have to research with hands. No.
Learning from pictures, no thank you.
So that's good.
Yeah, and then PT prac are like learning about the practice,
the
profession. That's
a little bit more didactic.
It's a lecture.
Lecture.
It's riveting information too. Yeah.
Monday afternoon.
Well, we had our pro prac class was Friday at like 2 p.m.
Ooh.
That's just like literally the perfect setup to just not go.
Not go. Oh no.
Not that me and Will did that. Me and Will went to every class. Okay.
Don't worry.
We know all your
nuts.
secrets. Our Fridays are completely dedicated to anatomy, so that's kind of an interesting spin that Mack does.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Cool.
I almost, and I don't know if this is bad to say, but like Thursdays almost feel like you're done PT school for the week, and then Fridays are kind of like your fun little like. It's definitely a change of pace though. Like we have a 2-hour anatomy lab where you're in the cadaver lab, which is like
which we always go to, and it's very interesting. It's actually really helpful.
She sounds
like one of your favorite classes.
I know.
We do go.
We do.
And we do enjoy it.
I believe you guys. I'm sure you're there. So, you guys have been introduced to OSCEs. So I want to hear how that's gone for you so far in terms of maybe preparing for them, doing them, and then maybe if you have a funny OSCE story that you'd like to share. Because I think everyone kind of goes through one. So I think it might give other students / future students a little bit of an idea of what to expect.
Oh, okay, I like this question.
Yeah.
So we figured out a really nice way to prepare. I think that now we've got down pat, knock on wood.
Yeah, because we've done one OSCE, but we also, Mack does clinical midterms. Mm-hmm. So we have even done 2 clinical practice midterms where we have like 4 questions. 2 of them are practical and 2 of them are written, but in the OSCE style.
Yeah, so just like a mini OSCE.
Yeah. So we've kind of found our group, which Cam will talk about now.
So we have a group of 6 girlfriends. We're really, really lucky. And what we've done is like just came up with scenarios, and we literally like rapid fire, put on a timer, and just like run through stations when we practice, and give ourselves like the minute to read the question. Give or take. And then like you have the 5 minutes to complete the station, then we just rotate and we just like go, and then we'll kind of do a feedback at the end. And it's been so helpful.
Yeah.
Just because the scenario practice, like that's definitely what you have to do.
I think like we found it best that if you're going to get tested in that way, you have to practice in that way. You can sit there and kind of do like little scenarios every once in a while or, you know, like you have to really like push yourself to do the exact same format as what the
And you can't
test
just
will be.
practice the skills. You kind of have to practice the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Dalton. I'm a student physical therapist at Western University.
University. I actually, the last practical midterm, I did my little speech, and the lady looks up at me and goes, "What? What's your name?" I go, I literally said, "I'm so sorry. I talk really fast."
Yeah.
And she lost a minute there.
I used to try different strategies. So at the start, I kind of went really fast. You know, like I was like, I'm just going to rip through the kind of intro. And I was like, you know, I'm getting like, I don't know, all right marks, but I want to try a different strategy. So later on in my career, I started doing
My career.
Just, my academic OSCE career. I flipped the switch and I started doing my intro like real slow.
Interesting.
And I just took my time, and I don't think either worked any better. About the same.
I just did now. So, results. Thank you for that little great advice.
You never thought like a happy medium?
No, unfortunately not. There wasn't enough time, I guess.
That's hilarious.
No, but the case-based stuff for sure. Also they really encourage us to try we're a group of 6 girls, but like you're going to have clients that are boys, obviously.
Yeah.
So try your skills on boys. Try your skills on like tall, short, big, small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there was
It's true.
something else I was saying. I forget. You have
Because
a
like
moment.
you don't
Right.
you don't think that's important though, but then like when you have someone just looks different, like be female, and you're like for some reason it's way different, you know.
It can throw you off in the moment. Absolutely.
Yeah, you panic.
Basement's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like we all practice on like what's our age group in our class, 20 to 27, and then like usually the people who we have semi experience aren't necessarily that age range. So.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any like funny OSCE stories that you guys want to share?
I think how you can tell us without being like.
I know. I have to be.
No, you.
So it was a transfer station.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can we say that?
what you're going with?
Yeah, you can. You can't
There's
tell anything like super specific.
Okay. Anyways, transfer station. I read the question and I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do. So I start the station and I read the question like very specifically. I had already been told to reread the question far too many times that day, and I just was like, I need to read these questions better. So I start reading it, and then I'm about halfway through, and the assessor, what would you call that? Invigilator stands up and goes, stop. That man's gonna fall. And I was like, so taken aback. Like, you only have 5 minutes for these stations. I am nervous as can be. I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, is this part of the scenario? Like, what's going on?
The key word in the question was watch.
Yeah, watch. So I was
Not
watching. Anyway, so I just was so taken aback. I kind of scrambled for the rest of the station, and I was like, I probably failed that. It's fine. I'm just going to get myself together. So I'm standing there. I had a couple seconds left over. So I stand there, and I see the invigilator take out this big red piece of paper from underneath her stack of pages and start scribbling on this red piece of paper. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, okay, I know I failed, but now you're just making it obvious. Like, that's not very encouraging. Like, can you just not make it that mean? So I go outside the classroom and I see one of our professors was monitoring the exam, and I'm like, you need to tell me right now that I failed that station. He was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. No, I don't know what this red piece of paper is. Go to the next station. You don't have time to be talking to me. And so I'm super thrown off of the rest of my stations. I'm just kind of like keep thinking about this red piece of paper. So 2 days later, we have our feedback session for the midterm, and 2 of the professors approached me, one of the ones that was in the exam with us, and another one was just the one who was on the other side because there was 2 exams running at the same time. And they come up to me and they're both kind of trying not to laugh, and they say, so we heard about the situation with the red sheet.
The situation.
It was, we did some investigating, and it was actually attendance sheets. So moving forward, we'll make sure to use blue and green piece of paper, not red. We're very sorry. That was a mistake on our part. We will try not to cause you any more stress in the future. And they're trying so hard not to laugh. And like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Meanwhile, here you think you're like, they're just writing out like your dismissal from the program.
I had no idea. I was like, are you kidding me?
You might as well just give it to her. Like,
Yeah.
we're done.
Should I just go home at this point? Like,
That's cool.
and that was our actual like first OSCE too. So
I just love that it was like, stand up, stop.
I'm not exaggerating. It was a full on, like, the people next door probably heard. I was so embarrassed.
That's hilarious.
But you passed. You're still here.
I'm still here, so that's my advice to the future PT students or going into exams or the ones that have yet to start. But that can happen to you, and you can make it through.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, remember your safety.
I black out after, so I don't even know like what.
Oh,
Like, you can ask me something, what happened? I'll be like, I don't know. I was gone for an hour. I don't know.
Did I ask for consent? I don't know.
Oh yeah. I was so worried for the last midterm that I didn't ask for consent. And that's a lot of points. And I'm like, I don't remember doing it. I have no idea. And so, I passed, so I must have done it, but I, for the life of me, thought that I did not do it.
This is so funny because this is exactly how it was for us. So it's hilarious. It's just funny to hear these stories.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's also good, like, I think it's normal for people to feel anxious and also screw up during an exam like that, So that's probably refreshing for some people to hear. Like, Dalton and I also definitely had some really panicky moments, and we made it through. So, just got to keep that in mind and try to manage the anxiety and get through it like one
and you can't dwell on them either. Like, that happened to me, and I seriously think it's the most hilarious thing now.
And it's honestly good practice for the national exam.
Yeah.
Because try and take that, learn how to channel that anxiety and those mistakes to look towards the next station, because in the practical for the national exam, it's that times 100, right? So I think a big part of it for us was just keeping that mentality of all right, if I mess up or I don't have something good, I can just move on to the next station. Don't worry about it. So it's each station is a new game. So it's good to practice that for sure.
Yeah.
OSCEs. Well, thinking of prepping for the national, what we were talking to some U of T students, because they just finished their unit and they're now on placement. So we were talking about the way that their OSCEs are laid out. And so since they still do units where it's all focused on MSK or something for the first whole unit, whereas Mack, because of the new curriculum this year, we touch on every single component, like cardio rest, neuro, MSK, et cetera, et cetera. So we touch on every single one, which means our OSCEs have a station from every single type. And so that really preps us well, because we have to change our thinking within 1 minute. Yeah. Completely change. We walk into the room, we have no idea if it's going to be someone with a shoulder or someone with a spinal cord injury. Yeah. So I think although that's challenging to flip your thinking, I think it's one of the things that makes Mack's new curriculum unique and also super beneficial. Hopefully will help prepare us for the national. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Man, shout out McMaster. Jeez.
Yeah. Man, McMaster likes to go rogue.
They do. They're doing their own thing. No, it's awesome. We also have incredible professors, which helps too.
Really good.
Awesome. All right, just to kind of wrap up here, guys, why don't you, if you want, we'll give you the mic to maybe just give your thoughts to any of the other students or future students coming into physio, maybe give them some of your thoughts or advice, or just a takeaway that you guys have learned so far from being in physio school and in the physio world.
Okay.
I feel like it is an amazing profession that you're going into. So if you like exercise and you like helping people, it's a challenge to go through it. Like right now we're in the challenging part, but after you're done, I think it's going to be very worth it.
Mm-hmm. I have two things I want to say. So for those of you that are like in undergrad and might be still in like third or fourth year and thinking about physio, I'd say yes, marks are important, but like take the time to do the volunteer work, the shadowing, all of that stuff, because that's going to prepare you with those soft skills. And for me, that was the huge thing that I'll forever be thankful for those experiences that I had, because the soft skills are things that you're not going to be necessarily taught here. So, and they're key.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the second thing I was going to say,
That was going to be the take one day. Wait.
Oh, one day at a time. No, that's one of my favorite sayings is take one day at a time. Yes. I honestly forget. I'll think about it after Bree says it.
Okay.
For me, I was kind of like torn between coming to McMaster and kind of like moving across like out of Nova Scotia away from everything that I like knew was easy and like familiar. And I kind of just like took the dive and came here, and I was so thankful. And like literally from day one being in the program, I just like knew it was for me. And I just like, it can become so hard and it's exhausting sometimes, but it's truly something that I can see myself in the future. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I just think that physiotherapy is so unique because you can make it your own. Like there's so many different ways that you can practice as a physiotherapist, and there's so many different realms you can go in, and you can really just like thrive in the way that you want to live your life, you want to practice. And I think that's so unique about physiotherapy is that you can choose how you want to make it and how you want to impact people's lives. So it's an incredible profession.
You got it.
God,
It's been a long podcast. It's been a long podcast. Lots of coffee. Don't worry. I stumble over my words all the time.
We could do a podcast though about all the words that Bree mispronounces.
No, we're doing a podcast coming up. We've been writing down things that I've mispronounced, especially in I never realized in undergrad that I never actually had to say these words out loud. I had to spell them right, so I now say them the way that I would remember to spell them. And now, just going about my normal day, I'll be in an anatomy lab and I'll be like, acetabulum, not like acetabulum. Like I just say these awful things. I say this oligocranon.
I'm the exact same way, to be honest. No, don't worry. I can't spell nor say the words, so you're good. You're good. You got one up on me.
So you can say things wrong and still thrive in PT. So it's
you're good.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Why don't you guys just leave where people can follow you? So like shout out your podcast, Instagram, wherever else you guys are on social.
Okay, well, we are on Instagram at Therabaes_physio, which is, just search us. We're purple.
Yeah.
Follow us. We'll follow you back.
We will.
And we're also on iTunes, Spotify.
There's a few other platforms that we're not even quite sure, but yeah.
Hey.
Listen to our podcast. I'm sure
It's called Therabaes.
it is. Yeah, and then, again, it's the same purple symbol that you'll be able to catch.
We've never actually had to tell anyone.
No.
Yeah, no, we haven't.
No, listen,
We're
you'll
not
get
really selling ourselves very well.
you'll
right
get
now.
better at it. You'll get better at it as you do it more and more. You're just gonna get it down, and
Let's please.
it'll just flow.
And
Awesome.
thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you.
We had a blast. We had a few technical issues, but we did class, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast.
Yeah, no,
That was fun.
yeah, thank you guys for coming on. And honestly, me and Will talk about this before we even had this episode. It was probably a couple of weeks ago, but like seeing you guys do what you're doing is the exact reason why we put content out and why we started doing things and why we've had podcasts. So like as much as like, you know, you guys feel inspired from other people that you followed on social, like you guys fire us up just as much to see that there's other students that are going out there and taking these platforms and using them for positivity and pushing the profession and education. So like keep doing your thing. You're inspiring us. I'm sure you're inspiring many other people. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if we said it either, but you guys have been big role models for all of us.
Oh, stop it.
Bree, I interviewed you for a paper, and I don't know if this would have came about without talking to people who like you guys and Mack.
Yeah.
Pulse. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Thank you.
That's the fun part about it, right? You don't know who the next person you're going to talk to, how it's going to change everything for you. So that's why me and Will definitely advocate for this stuff.
Yeah.
Sweet guys. All right. We will catch you later. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Yeah.